Joining us now is Nevada Congressman Stephen Horsford, who is a Democrat representing Nevada's 4th District. He's on the House Financial Services Committee, the House Armed Services Committee, is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, the co-chair of Labor Caucus, and also vice chair of the Equal Rights Amendment Caucus. He joins us now. Congressman, welcome back to the program. Good morning. How are you?
Wonderful, Laura. Thanks for having me on, and congratulations on your continued success.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that you continue to join the program. I do appreciate hearing your insight in particular. Tell me about the national summit that took place with the CBC on democracy and race. There's also an upcoming summer of action. What are the priorities?
Thank you so much. Well, as you know, there are a number of direct attacks on our democracy, and the Congressional Black Caucus convened a national group of leaders from around the country, academics, those in the civil rights movement, activists who are on the ground, elected officials at the local, state, and federal level to join with the members of the Congressional Black Caucus to, one, discuss some of the concerning issues that are under attack with our democracy. We have the Supreme Court that has decisions pending with the Voting Rights Act in Section 2, which may further undermine our fundamental right to vote. Also, the affirmative action case that is also pending decision by the Supreme Court. On top of that, we have states like North Carolina that their extreme Supreme Court just upheld racial gerrymandered districts, which will affect both the state legislature and congressional seats, and the expulsion of 2 of the youngest members who happen to be black men from the Tennessee legislature, as well as efforts to ban everything from books to black education to black history in states like Florida and Virginia. So we're not going to take this without a fight, and that's why the Congressional Black Caucus convened this national summit to develop a strategy, our message and mobilization, which will be launched as part of our summer of action to defend our democracy, which will begin later this month.
Obviously, this is the Congressional Black Caucus that is spearheading. Is there buy-in from your colleagues outside of the caucus as well? Because what you are suggesting that needs to be done is going to be incumbent on a wider range of members of Congress as well to buy into it, to support, and to implement.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, the Congressional Black Caucus is referred to as the conscience of the Congress, and so we will always work with our colleagues that are aligned with our priorities, but we also understand the moment that we are in, and it's our constituents directly who are impacted by some of the impacts to our democracy, whether that's people who are waiting in long lines to vote, whether it's young people who are concerned about the safety in their communities from gun violence or police brutality, or if it's, you know, everybody who's focused on economic conditions which disproportionately affect black and other marginalized communities. So yes, we are working through the Congressional Hispanic and Asian American Pacific Islander Caucus, among others, but we understand that, you know, the CBC leads, and we're called upon in this moment to do things to defend our democracy, and we're taking the first steps to do just that.
Talk to me a little bit about what's called the blue slip tradition that I know the Congressional Black Caucus has recently called on the Senate to drop. Explain what that is for our audience and why there are calls to end it.
Yeah. So if your audience could imagine for a moment that in the Senate there is a tradition, not a rule, not something embedded in the Constitution, that gives the right of every senator to hold what is called a blue slip. It's literally a blue slip of paper that they have to turn in when deciding whether to allow a nominee for a federal judgeship, a U.S. attorney, or a marshal to be brought to the Senate floor for a vote. It is an arcane practice, along with the filibuster, that dates back to Jim Crow, and it's still being used today by the Senate to determine whether highly qualified, fair, and independent nominees by President Biden can be brought to the floor, or to committee for that matter, for consideration, rather than just an up or down vote. And so the Congressional Black Caucus met recently with Chairman Durbin of the Judiciary Committee. We respect him. He's been a champion on important issues like getting Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmed to the United States Supreme Court, but he is uniquely empowered with determining whether this practice that dates back to Jim Crow will be continued now in this moment when these federal judgeships are up for consideration. And we've asked the chairman to respectfully consider ending or drastically reforming the practice so that Senate Republicans who are using this blue slip to obstruct or to deny the ability for these highly qualified, fair, and independent nominees to be brought up for a vote.
What is the Senate's response to this? Do you think they will be receptive to it?
Well, to be clear, it's the chairman's decision. It's not something that has to be changed by the rules of the body. It's not a vote. It doesn't require 60 votes. It's something the chairman, as the head of the Judiciary Committee, can determine. It has been reformed in the past, and we're calling upon him to do it again. He met with a group of the CBC membership to hear our concerns. We spent more than an hour in his office, and now we're working with him to figure out what is possible in this moment and it's bigger than just these nominees being brought up for a vote. While they deserve it because they're highly qualified, they're fair and independent, most of them have been recommended by the American Bar Association. This, in contrast to the judges that were stacked under Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, who were less than qualified. These are highly qualified, but it's more important, and it goes to the essence about what the federal courts are determining right now. They are making decisions about voting, about whether or not gun safety legislation can be adopted in states. They're determining reproductive justice issues, and they are determining whether or not the fundamental protections under the law from discrimination or racism will be upheld. So we are calling on the chairman to use the powers that are inherent in his position to allow these reforms, and at the very least, for Senate Republicans to be exposed and to have to state publicly why they are holding up these very highly qualified nominees. Don't hide behind a Senate tradition of the blue slip. State your objections publicly so that everyone knows, and if you don't have a justification that is sound, then release these nominations so that they can be confirmed by the Senate and appointed to their positions.
Finally, Congressman Stephen Horsford, there is a vote on the H.R. 2 immigration bill. As you know, Title 42 will expire today. How do you see that actually going?
Well, sadly, I think the Republicans in the House are going to ram through a very cruel and failed policy that was implemented during the Trump administration. It's not going to materially solve anything related to our immigration policies or what is not working, and that is what I think the missed opportunity is here. Look, the people in Nevada's 4th District and all around the country want Congress to do its job, whether that's to fund our government and avoid defaults, which is going to put our economy in a spiral, focusing on making sure that we actually are solving critical issues that are going to keep our country moving forward, like growing the economy, and solving problems like comprehensive immigration, which overwhelmingly Americans want to see us provide a pathway for DACAs and Dreamers to have a pathway to citizenship. They want us to protect children who are seeking asylum and refuge to be able to get that opportunity for safety. They want us to solve the border crisis. And unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen today, because House Republicans are bent on implementing a cruel and inhumane policy that was failed under Donald Trump, rather than solving the problem in a bipartisan and comprehensive way.
But wouldn't you agree that we just talked to Majority House Whip Tom Emmer out of Minnesota on this very issue. He naturally has a very different take than you have in terms of whether the Democrats or Republicans are working most effectively. There has been a great deal of criticism of the Biden administration specifically, and this is with full recognition, as you and I can agree, that this issue of immigration did not begin with Biden or even Trump or even his predecessor and before that. This has really been a continuing and perennial issue congressionally and in executive branch. Do you have criticism of how this is being handled right now in the administration, and what more should be done right now?
I have very serious concerns with the fact that we have a broken immigration policy in this country. And as you said, it didn't just start now. It's been broken for a very long time. I'm a son of an immigrant. My mother came to the United States when she was 12 years old from Trinidad and Tobago. And so I've seen the impacts of the system up close. And I want what most of Americans want, which is a pathway to citizenship for dreamers and DACA and TPS holders who are in our community, who are contributing, who are tax-paying, and who are working hard to make America the country that it should be, as well as making sure that we have an asylum system that works, that keeps children and families who are fleeing drug cartels safe. I want us to root out illegal drugs from the ports and from the border. I've been to the border several times, and I've seen firsthand what is being done through technology and investment to tackle the fentanyl crisis. And I want us to have the resources to support our Border Patrol so that they can do their job. Those are solutions. That's not what Republicans are doing today with their Child Deportation Act, which is not going to solve the crisis. It's actually going to make it worse. And instead of having images on TV of thousands of children and families, we should be working to solve the crisis, which is a broken immigration system that needs to be fixed.
Well, today is the end of Title 42. As you know, the expiration of it. We will all be waiting to see what happens next, as I'm sure you will be as well. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to hearing more about the upcoming summer of action and what will happen from here. Thank you for joining us today, Congressman Stephen Horsford. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Laura. You as well. Take care.